I really didn't think that I would like Borderlands 3. After nearly a decade away from the franchise, I really wasn't sure how well I'd enjoy it. Back in 2013, I sure liked it a whole lot, sure. But I wasn't certain how well the humor would age, and I do remember the franchise feeling more stiff than basically every other shooter out there. Though the game came out back in 2019, I just now got around to it, and after 80 or so hours, I'm finally ready to talk about if it's still worth playing nearly 5 years later. Let's start off with the good. Gearbox has clearly learned a lot about the pitfalls of a dreary, arid environment. While you do start off on Pandora as usual, Borderlands 3 goes to some truly gorgeous environments. From the lush forests of Eden 6 to the neon streets of Promethea, there's finally some real diversity among the locations. The characters are good too, with the focus this time around on Lilith, Tannis, and Ellie as your main crew to start.
Howdy you.
And as you probably know, you either play as Mose the Gunner, Zane the Operative, Amara the Siren, or Flack the Beastmaster. I chose to go as Amara, and honestly I'm kind of glad I did because the story really does explore the concept of sirens in general. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about, right? You can judge the story on your own. What you're probably wondering is, how well does it play? And as always, the focus is on the most integral part of the series: guns. Most of your first playthrough boils down to this: find a good gun that chunks through enemies. As you level up, it stops being as good, so then you're on the hunt again for the next awesome drop that will do the same. Sometimes that's a pistol, other times it's an assault rifle, and you get to kind of toy around, try different things. Then when you finally get to the end game where every weapon is basically equally as powerful, just depending on the rolls and what your preferences are, you're just chasing the best possible rolls. Right now I'm rocking a Torg pistol and a Malawan shotgun that either one-shots enemies or chunks bosses so quickly it's not even funny. In the year 2024, there are also some features that are a breath of fresh air. For one, getting 100% completion feels attainable. There's a ton to do, but it's not overwhelming in the way something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey is, with a million different types of things to complete and collect. The planet Eden 6, for example, has 9 different types of collectibles, but most of them have single digits worth of things to complete, and even fewer of them are required for achievements. On top of that, all of the limited time events have been made available forever. All you have to do is toggle them on and you can still get the collectibles and experience that everyone else got to play live. And perhaps the best part, the game is consistently cheap. I can only speak to the Xbox experience, but I find it on sale often, and the store keeps pushing a quote-unquote personalized sale, where I can get all of Pandora's box, that's every Borderlands game and DLC, for only $30. Which is great if you haven't played the previous titles, and still a significant discount over buying the game off sale. And trust me, the cost is worth it. As per usual, the base Borderlands game is good, but the expansions are where it truly shines. Borderlands is so good when it focuses down onto one specific theme. Whether that's the casino hell that is Moxie's heist of the handsome jackpot, the tongue-in-cheek horror of guns, love, and tentacles, or the narrated western style of Bounty of Blood. All of them with excellent characters and soundtracks, by the way, that are way, way better than the base game. Now that the basics are taken care of, let's focus on the best part: the systems and mechanics that make the game so enjoyable. For one, there's 4 different classes and all of them are super fun. I've mostly played Amara, but I feel a constant want to try out the other classes and see how differently they play as you get to the endgame. Once you reach max level, you'll unlock the Guardian Ranks system, which is the same old infinite leveling system where you can slowly increase each of your stats across any character you play, including things like gun damage, fire rate, shield capacity, accuracy, recoil reduction, and more. The increases are small, but Gearbox has categorized each trait into either Enforcer, Survivor, or Hunter. Investing a certain number of points into a specific category will unlock perks and cosmetics, which can actually be a huge help. Like Dead Man's Hand, which allows aiming down your sights and removes all aiming penalties while in fight for your life. Or Shield Reboot, which makes your shield start regenerating anytime you kill an enemy. On top of that, unlike games like Destiny where you have a 1 in a bajillion chance of getting a weapon with the right roll you want, Borderlands is far more forgiving. It has two main types of loot, regular loot and anointed loot. Anointed loot just comes with an additional perk, like an extra 250% extra damage for a short time after using your ultimate, or 100% additional cryo damage in your next 2 rounds after reloading. These can be rerolled for 250 iridium each, meaning the only real thing you need to chase is a decent drop that also happens to have any kind of anointment. At the very least, you don't have to have the two match up perfectly. So rather than it being this huge grind of having a good perk in column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4, it's instead, is this roll good as a whole, and is it anointed? That's it. Sure, there are specific stat rolls you can chase, but unlike Destiny, there's so much more of a gray area where a weapon can still be fantastic despite not being ideal. Borderlands also has its very own Xur in Maurice's black market vending machine, which moves weekly across the open world spaces and always offers 3 different legendary weapons for large sums of cash. We're talking 10 to 25 million each, which is a perfect sync for endgame. And on top of that, each weapon has 3 to 4 different rolls and anointments, giving you a chance to choose the best one for you. And once you've completed the game, you can either enter true Vault Hunter mode to replay the entire game but with enemies level synced, which again they are not by default, or you can simply enable Mayhem Mode, which will do the same, but without the need to replay the entire campaign. I'm not really sure why you'd opt for Vault Hunter mode, there really is no reason to do so, but Mayhem Mode is pretty great. You get instant access to level synced enemies, more XP, and better loot in general. As a rule, a Mayhem level 3 weapon is almost always going to be better than a Mayhem level 1 weapon, with the idea being that you'll slowly ascend through the ranks as you get better weapons within that specific tier. There are legendaries that are exclusive to Mayhem level 4 and higher and 6 and higher, so if you want the full pool, you have to work your way up. You can 100% cheat your way there by just going to Mayhem 10 and use some golden or diamond keys to get your gear with 0 risk, but I personally opted to keep my game on Mayhem level 1 just to get these scaled enemies and better rewards without too much of a punishment. I'm personally over super high difficulty because that can be frustrating, and I'm just over being frustrated in a game. But if you're looking for a challenge, it's certainly there. Each level of Mayhem comes with better and better rewards, but more and more penalties, which is all great except Mayhem Mode does add difficulty, but mostly what it does is turn every single enemy into an unbelievably tough bullet sponge, which is the least kind of fun difficulty. Sure, you can tough it out and keep playing until you get a really good roll that finally lets you chunk enemies that have 10,000% health, 10,000% armor, and 10,000% shields, but you only get an extra 250% damage output. In reality, on difficulties this high, your entire build has to be working perfectly together. It's not the kind of content that you can simply take whatever you want, throw it together, and have it be relatively easy to overcome. From the content side of things, I found enemy design to not exactly be exciting. The vaults feel super underwhelming, like one of the worst parts of the game, and shops largely feel irrelevant until the end game. There's also this weird mechanic where different weapon vendors send you mail with rewards for using their weapons. In theory, this is cute, but in reality, it just means my inventory is constantly clogged with blues and purples that I'm just never going to use. I'm also going to put the game's vault passes into the bad category. While they're nice in theory, since they aren't time limited and the rewards are static, they do put pressure on you, especially while you're leveling, to use different weapon types other than the things you're enjoying the most, which isn't the most enjoyable way to play. Now that I'm in the true endgame and have a ton of legendary weapons to use all at max level, the vault passes feel nice, but having access to those early on could have ruined a good chunk of my campaign if I let it. I really don't want to feel pressured to use that one awful SMG for 300 kills just because it's the only electric weapon I have at my level. I will also say again that it is possible to solo everything in this game with the right build and weapons, but if that's not you, you're a bit out of luck unless you have friends with the game. By and large, no one is really doing matchmaking, and the pool is split even further because it separates the pools by which Mayhem Mode you're on. With 11 different ranks and base difficulty, it becomes really hard to even find one person to play with. Now for the ugly.
Woo! What a thrill! I'm feeling fresher than a two-mint julep. How'd I do?
Disgraceful, shameful, genuinely upsetting. Ugh. I'm disappointed, both in you for your performance and in myself for being foolish enough to expect better of you.
The big bads being streamers was cringe in 2019, and trust me, it still is now.
What is up, brothers and sisters? God Queen Tyrene coming to you live. We got something real special for you today.
Still is now. I hated everything about it. It's super obnoxious and removes any real sympathy I have for them when they're constantly playing up subscribers and raiding tier supporters, and yes, I realize the irony. There's also some really heavy suspension of disbelief moments that are hard to get through. Every time something bad happens, suddenly your Vault Hunter is MIA in basically every cutscene despite being 50 feet away. Like, you very clearly could have helped, but for some reason you're just not there right this second. It's a super weird choice. And mechanically, I wish there was an easier way to play multiple classes that didn't involve abusing bugs or game mechanics that you have to look up on Google. I'd really love to play the other characters, but after 80 plus hours, I just don't have it in me to start all over and play through the entire campaign again. There is no way to skip it on another character. You need to beat it 4 times if you want all 4 characters in endgame. And finally, there are lots of bugs. The game has hard crashed me twice while playing. I've had about 10 issues with the game where I launch it and something goes wrong that can only be fixed by shutting down the game and booting it up again. And there's this really pesky shop bug that resets your selection to the first item in your inventory every time you sell something. With 50 plus items in your inventory, that's a huge pain in the butt, and the only fix is quitting back out to the main menu and loading back in. Again, none of this ruins my experience, it's all just annoying. In short, Borderlands 3 takes all of the best parts of a grindy live service game without the infinite treadmills, the power creep, or the FOMO. Instead, it's a 100-hour, or hundreds of hours if you play multiple classes, experience where you can chase amazing weapons, freely experiment with builds, and respec at will. Even after you experience the top-notch DLC expansions and complete your first playthrough, there's just enough there to keep you logging in weekly or even daily, but with absolutely zero pressure to do so. I'd say this is one game that holds up remarkably well despite the many issues, and is definitely worth checking out for any fan of looter shooters or grindy games in general, even in 2024. In the meantime, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment for this video's question. If you've played Borderlands 3, would you recommend it to other people? Let me know. Want to support the channel? There's a Patreon linked in the description below. For now though, I think that's it. I'll see you next time.